Hello and welcome to the Ambistream Media Future Podcast. I'm Michael Fiorentino and I'm here with Sofia Prieto, who works at the CultTech Accelerator program. So I was a member of the CultTech Accelerator program in 2024 and it ended with a very fun demo day. And we're going to talk about the worlds of art and media and the convergence of technology and startups and media in general, in all of its forms. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Michael. We love this space to showcase all of the startups that come into the program and what they're doing. And we connect very well because it's technology, it's art, and it's the future.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of CultTech. Why don't we talk about the format of how CultTech works? As a startup, you apply, you go through a few rounds of interviews, you get accepted. I actually got rejected twice. And that was by the third time, I did a meeting with someone who was actually on maternity leave at the time. And I said, hey, you keep asking me to apply again. And at some point, this is just bad for my health. And it's ironic because you teach about startups and mental health. And this is going to be bad for me if I apply and get rejected again. And I had said the team was very encouraging. They said, no, every time we have different criteria, we have different teams. And sometimes it's just about the startups that are selected and how they'll get along with each other. And I think you'd opened it up to more companies that were available. And so
Yeah.
I finally met the criteria. I think I flew to Barcelona to go to the 4 Years From Now event, which you were offering free tickets and I was appreciative. And I thought if I go to that event and I meet them and go to their summits and have like a drink with them, I think that'll improve my chances of getting picked. And maybe that put us over the edge. Maybe that's why you selected me.
Yeah, so it's focused on making art and culture more available for the people. So normally we don't pick just artists. We try to look for startups that are creating tools or platforms or anything that can help culture be more accessible to everyone. Normally we have more in music tech, art tech, like media, content marketing comes within the culture. So it was like a really good match.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that I fit into the categories of, I mean, besides like fintech and some Web3 and AI stuff, marketing media exchanges, it is about the idea of multi-layered media mashups. And I think that in the past, certain new forms of technology and media weren't considered art. And as time goes on, everyone's using it. You know, back in the day, using Photoshop was considered cheating. Now it's pretty standard practice. And I think AI is kind of the next frontier with that. And also it comes with new problems. How do we tag AI? How do we make sure that we're using ethical uses of technology and respecting copyright? And that's something that I'm very passionate about and trying to solve. It's like I look for the messes and I try to fix them.
I love
Let me
that.
Why don't we list some of the kinds of startups that have been in CultTech in the past?
Yeah, some work with the performing arts to help people book studios. Some of them were working on making the I don't remember how it is called. Wait. Ale, ¿cómo es que se llama?
Hacemos así entrevista en español.
Sorry, I am not that familiar because of course the program manager is Ale. So I think she can answer better that question.
Okay.
Do you
Let's
can I
have Ale.
switch?
Yeah, come
Yeah,
on in.
can I have Ale answering that?
Yes.
She would do it better.
Special guest star, Alejandra.
Hello, hello.
So we were talking about the startups and we were saying how I'm tech and distribution, but we had some that were more involved with the classical arts. And so if you have any examples of some names that you want to name drop or kind of areas of focus.
Well, we do have some startups that works with classic orchestras, trying to build easier way to get musicians for the orchestra. It's very hard for you to get substitute at last minute because you do rely on your personal contacts. Then we also have another startup. What they do is that they realize classical instruments are really expensive and that they also gain value over time. So now they're finding a way for you to invest in the instrument so players can get them in a more accessible way, and then you get the return of that investment with time.
That's cool.
In the visual arts space, Indy from Lucid, she's doing this performing arts digital space where you can discover new performing arts.
That's a tough
Um,
one to discover performing arts because, there's so many granular event pages, but there's not like one place to go to.
Yes, she wants to be like the Netflix for performing arts, and she's been working really hard on the recommendation algorithm that helps you really discover new things, because it's really hard. Like if you're entering the space, you don't know what to look for.
So while I have you here, I want to ask about like the criteria for selection. Maybe this could be if someone else is watching this and they want to apply to the next batch. Like, how do you decide who to pick?
As you know, we really, really have a cohort that works well together. We don't want any competing startups in the cohort, so you all feel very safe to share your ideas. And we also want you to be complementary, not just in what you're working, but also in the personalities. We do want people committed, that are very open, that are very friendly. The criteria is between a science and an art, because we do want to have strong founders, but we also want to have nice people that fits in our community with our values. So this year, what we're seeing with the application trend is that we're leaning towards more advanced startups. We're finalizing the interviews and everything, and then after we have this very last group of people, we'll just think what's the best combination for this year's cohort.
Okay, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
I wish I knew that when I was applying. Just like investors, some people only look at early stage, they want it from the beginning. Some people want to see more traction and results and examples.
This year's applications have been more leaning towards not late stage, but it's not first time fundraisers. Some, like most of them have already fundraised. Basic requirements we do have is that you have to have a registered company and you have to have an MVP.
It's very Eurocentric. Technically, it can be from people all over the world.
Yes, it can. We're just very clear with people that apply from out of Europe that some of the trainings are very European focused, because fundraising here in Europe, it's very different as fundraising in the United States. You know about that. It's very different, like personalities in the investment space. And also, since you have to come to Vienna twice a year, then the travel expenses, it's
Yeah, let's
also
talk about that. So I think that format worked really well. So it's a Vienna-based accelerator program, but really you're there physically in the very beginning for a kickoff to meet everybody. And actually it ends up becoming a boot camp. So I think some people were surprised about. You're there, you're so excited to meet people, and then it's 5 minutes and you have to give the best pitch and they're gonna rip it apart and everyone's gonna write their thoughts. But somehow it does help the team get together really well. And then we would meet for several hours a week in probably about 2 sessions a week, give or take, where we would go into all the topics. There was a lot of content. I think it had expanded previously from a 4-month program to a 6 or 7 month program where most of it is remote, but you still are seeing and interacting and workshopping with these people all the time. And then you go and meet again at the end of the program, and it feels like you've known them for years.
I'm glad that's your feeling. We do try to make it that way. We understand that it's very important for you to meet in person when we begin, and then have this moment of bonding and really getting to know each other's projects and also getting to know each other personally. Because even though we have this next 5 or 6 months of virtual interaction, it's different because we already met in person. So it feels different. And then we have this end moment where everyone's energy is very high, everyone's anxious, everyone's excited, and then we get together. And I think that's also a really nice bonding experience.
I agree. I totally agree. And I realize that a lot of the CultTech focus it is tech. You have to have some sort of scalable system or else it doesn't make sense to be in this program. But a lot of the conversation is how do we not make it so features based or so nerdy? Like, what is the value? How does this help creators? How is this good for the art world? How is the world a better place if these companies succeed? And you do look around at these events and you say, wow, if these people do well, we'll be in a much better place than if certain other people get the next rounds of funding. So there is a lot of heart in the organization and people come from very different backgrounds, different places. But I do think that there is a shared value system that's pretty close. Hopefully not exactly the same because that would be boring. But at least there's a similar approach to the world. And I kind of felt like it was all the cool indie Euro people that were they work in art, they live it, they breathe it. And I feel like I always feel more like a tech nerd when I'm around that group. And then when I'm around all the tech people, I'm like the weird art person, So it's funny to have a foot in both worlds and realize that. And I guess in a way I keep one foot in America, one foot in Europe. And in a way, it's about like, where's the connection between that? It might have been Sarah that said this in the first meeting. She said, think about the people who are making the AI art that generates what is considered the new creative works right now. A lot of those people are engineers and they're not the artists. And when they make them and they make the rules around them, they're not really thinking about the quality of life or the soul or the vision. So that's why there's this group of people that are all working together and individually to create their companies and help bring more art solutions in the world. So it's not art versus tech. It's how does it work together, but how does it make the world a better place?
I understand that sometimes they're not very happy about engineers making art. They blame the tech, but I do think that we need to shift that speech into everyone can do whatever they want with the tech and get creative with it, whether it is or not. Art depends on you, and it doesn't make you feel something. Does it inspire you in any way? Do you think it's a manifestation of someone else's creativity? I do find it really creative and kind of artistic that someone can program AI to create something new. We all like different music genres. We all like different writers. Some people enjoy poetry, some people don't.
You can see that certain people who work with, let's say, AI, if they're a writer, they can get better writing out of AI than someone who's not. Or a photographer can get better images generated from AI art, or photographers who have director skills can get better videos out of there. So there is definitely a value to that. And you could even say the paintbrush was new tech at some point, or the printing press.
Yeah, even the camera, a lot of people thought that artists were going to go out of business because we had the photography and nobody would want portraits anymore.
So what are you excited about with the media and art world?
Oh, I'm really excited to see more creatives. I think that tech is allowing more people to get into art, to explore different types of creativity. People who have no access to instrument, for example, are now being able to create music with their computers or with their phones. I think everyone's a creative person, and then sometimes we think we're not because we think there's just some like types of creativity that are already established. So you're good at dancing or painting or singing. It's now a broader option of being creative with tech. So now you can be really creative with your iPad. Even if you're not a great drawer, then now there are tools that help you draw. I think that this is going to help everyone explore their creative side. I'm really excited to see people being more expressive and more creative with these new tools.
I think on my end, on that same note, I think a lot about like digital environments and how do we have the mood of what's around us in terms of like what's happening on our screens, what's happening in the speakers. And I think a lot about how does that make me feel and how does it make me feel how I want to feel? Do I want to feel relaxed, excited, social? Do I want to dance? And the idea of like mashing up stuff, that is kind of how a lot of forms of art happen. You combine two genres of music and you make a new genre of music. And it does have a lineage, almost like languages. And so with these new tools, we have ways where everyone can do that. And so every time people get together, there could be a moment of artistic expression by just choosing and curating. In some ways, we see it when we pick a playlist. Do you want to have a chill playlist? Do you want pop songs? Do you want to have early 90s mix? And it's really easy right now. You could just do a search or hit a button. With the tech, we'll be able to, one, have new examples that are easily created, but also two, have the mixture and the compilation on many more layers than we've had in the past. And I think that changes a lot. I think also maybe our brains can tolerate that a little better than people could have maybe 100 years ago, because you probably had radio 100 years ago, but not broadcast television at that time. And if you played all that stuff at the same time, they might get way overwhelmed. So you did kind of hit on a point. There is this distinction of how do we give the classic forms of art and the classic mediums their own space to play in, but also allow a pathway for new digital mediums and find the interconnection of that. And that kind of just seems like CultTech doesn't have the answer to that, but it's exploring the question and it's giving people the resources to be able to become that solution. It's like we don't know the answer, but we're going to help these companies. Somebody has the answer, or maybe it's them working together to find the answer.
What we really, really want is to create a community and to build a space for the creative cultural arts. and technology. Like, we want to be part of the conversation. We want to be part of the innovation space. Music and performing arts and visual arts, they're just like scattered, and they don't have like this grouping where we can all be represented. And I think that's what CultTech wants to do. We just want to gather them all. We want to be seen by investors. We want people to learn about the CultTech space, to learn about the opportunities, the possibilities, that is an investable space, that is a profitable space. There's a lot going on in this space, and people don't know that.
Yeah, somebody told me once, I think it was when I first went to New York City and I went to galleries and I said, why is this painting worth so much money? It's like, it looks like someone could do it in a garage and it would be fine. And this person that was more artistic than me said, well, art is a conversation that happens outside of the economy. It's its own conversation. And I kind of reframed how I looked at it. Now I kind of think it's blended into all the conversation of everything else, but it is an interesting perspective. One of the things I noticed about CultTech was that it wasn't just about the batch of people that we were interacting with and having a close relationship to. There was also this integration with all the previous batches, and they were very accessible. If I was looking for, what program to use or who to talk to or what mentor was good, like, we get a list. There's a Notion page. You love the Notion page. I know you put a lot of content into there, a lot of effort.
I'm just in love with Notion.
And actually, as part of the program, we get free access to like premium Notion for 6 months or something. Anyway, so yeah, there's all the other groups. And for me, it was really important because I needed to, part of what I'm doing is establishing partnerships. So I'm saying, who wants to create a digital social TV channel that's playing their art? And somebody once asked me, well, how much do we pay you for that? And I'm like, no, no, no. We pay you to give us the art and we give it to the people. And when we make the money, that goes mostly to you. And that's like the shift in the relationship. But part of it as a startup is if I'm just around tech people all day, then I don't necessarily have access to the archives of cultural institutions like museums, galleries, libraries, broadcasters. And there's just so much art from so many decades that can just be repurposed or just shown in a new way or mixed up with something else. So it is about how do we showcase it? How do we give previews of it? How do we have edits of it? And how do we have people add their commentary and clips on top of that and personalize it with their groups of people? And so a lot of what CultTech is really helpful for in my case is just how do I connect deeper with that community? Digital galleries, old school museums, these things aren't always accessible. And I feel like CultTech really tries to open the doors. And it's almost like a web to interconnect people with each other. And you don't really say what to do. You're just kind of like, here's their number, figure it out.
I'm glad that you see value in the network. We do want to make it very open, very accessible. We do feel that everyone's very, very happy to collaborate. Everyone's very excited to meet new people that are excited about the same things they are. Yes, so our plans for this year and for next year is to do something more serious with the community. We do want to give it more structure.
What does that mean?
Things
I'm
are
so
coming up.
curious.
I cannot tell you anything more yet, but something's coming. Something's coming up for the community.
Well, can I be involved in whatever it is?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good. Well, I did see, I mean, you do have panels at the 4 Years From Now event in other areas. So there is almost like little pods of CultTech. Oh, I did want to mention the mentor community too. That was something that had changed, right? The format of CultTech was you had one primary mentor that was with you for the whole process to keep you accountable. They had sort of instructions to make sure we were on track. And I think a proposed change that happened in our group was that we had a primary mentor. We were also allowed to ask for additional hours with people who either had taught previous sessions or they were just part of the network. And I think we were given like 5 hours and I used those up real quick. And I always kept saying, hey, can I have another hour? And you said, oh, you've been very good. You're allowed to have another hour. You like gave me permission to have it, especially with like the financial modeling. I wanted to go deep and fix a lot of that. And I had interns that were investment banker focused. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to book my mentoring session and get that person who's an expert on how to do this and put him on the call with the interns so we could all figure it out. And it was really cool. It was helpful for them. It made my life easier. And the interns were able to come up with some great stuff based on the way that it was presented to them. So I do really appreciate that mentor community. And I think in general, it's like these are people that we're connected to and that we could always reach out to in the future. And I feel like CultTech gets a lot of people who ask to be mentors, which is maybe different than when you go out of your way to hunt for people to be mentors, which I think changes the dynamics and sort of the level of involvement and like the passion.
Yeah, it is true. We do get a lot of people that are interested in sharing their knowledge, their experience with the community. They feel that they have something to add. They are very open also to learning from you. And it is really inspiring. Like, we don't pay them what they usually charge for their services and their experience. They're very senior, experienced people. They do this because they really feel passionate about it and they do it from their heart, which is really amazing. So we're really, really grateful for all the mentors that have come to us and that are part of the mentor network.
In a way,
Yeah,
I don't want to get too much into the economics of it, but the sessions and the mentorships are just very serious. They're not like a serious mood, but people are there, they're on time. It's going to happen. The hours are logged. I think other programs that are more volunteer based, maybe someone shows up, maybe they don't, maybe it gets postponed a few times. That didn't really happen in CultTech. And I don't know if it's the formula of some money exchange that helps or something, but I think it's a lot tighter in organization compared to other groups that are similar.
They do get compensation because we understand that their time is very valuable and we want to show that to them. At the same time, they do understand that we're a startup ourselves, that we're just building this step by step, and that they just commit to the vision and the mission.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think we can go back to Sofia now.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It was lovely seeing you.
Great to see you again.
I'm so
Well,
glad that Ale was here
Yeah. You know what?
because
I knew.
I thought I was interviewing you. So maybe we can close in like how does Ambistream have this journey with the mentors, with the classmates, and now how are you like coming back to the industry after the program?
Yeah, so I know my startup and other startups, they're all in different phases. Some are on this like rapid growth. For me, I was doing a friends and family round at the same time. And it was actually about reinforcing the basics, making sure that I had everything structured, making my first version of a data room that actually said all the pieces. And, we have multi-hour sessions, sometimes 6 hours of financial modeling classes to go over this stuff. So we have to do our homework. And, a lot of it is in person, real time. Camera's always on. We can't like zone out too much. We're all probably zoning out a little bit because we're artistic people, but I think that was really helpful to sort of like make sure we had a good foundation. And as the program went, it was very comprehensive. So we could see in advance what we were going to watch. And as soon as the session ended, there was a video so we can look through it, get transcripts or whatever and apply it to what we were doing. But while that was happening, we were always building up to giving the final demo day presentation. And again, for me, when I was presenting in the beginning was not only a different company name, but it was a different angle to look at the company. I come from a digital advertising world, media, technology. I can get really nerdy about certain data science uses and regulation stuff. And sometimes I have to remember that I'm making an app to share videos and art and content. And by the end, we sort of said, what's the story here? What are the points? How are you going to get this into 3 minutes? The feedback for me was always, you speak way too fast. You're speaking English to a group of people where English is their second language or third language. Slow down, and you're trying to cram too much in too much of a little space. I kind of arrived maybe with a mentality like they deserve to hear all these things. If they want to invest or be involved, like they should know about it. And I think CultTech was like, no, they don't. Like they can find that out in a different conversation. Just what's the hook? And so I think that was really helpful. Again, it was about taking out too much of the tech and focusing more on the value for the creator community and the economy in general. And I would say, for us, we started as Vixtape, like a video mixtape, mashups of audio, video, data, and talking more about the format. It's almost like, the DVD of the 2020s or something, like the cassette tape of the 2020s. Funny story, working in being in Austria and with Germans, I pulled someone aside. I'm like, I've heard that the name Vixtape might have a different correlation in this region. Because when I did my marketing testing, I checked in Latin America, saw how it was interpreted in Spanish and French and Italian and Portuguese, and it was like Vixtape or Vixtape or things like that, which is fine. German, everyone had this awkward laugh and smile. I'm not going to say what it means. It refers to a very private act. And and so I was saying I can't be in this Austrian Accelerator program with that name. Luckily, I'm sort of a domain name hoarder. and a social media handle holder. So I had a list of other names. I said, okay, Ambistream, like ambient media streaming. Why don't we give it a refresh? And I thought, I'm in an accelerator program. I'm going to just relaunch my socials, put it out there. And so that's how we embraced Ambistream. And so now we still are thinking about using Vixtape as a sub product name, more on that in the future, because I still do own the trademarks and the domain names. But Ambistream is how we're putting ourselves out there. So I literally had a transformation from beginning to even after the first month. And then the last thing I'll say is at the end for the demo day, about 4 weeks before, they said, you're kind of like not really, you're saying you're a streaming platform, you're kind of an app, you're sort of a media exchange, you're like, what is it? And I said, well, it's kind of a hybrid of social media and streaming television. And they said, okay, well, what do you call that? I said, well, it's social TV. And they said, okay, let's do some research. And they said, no one really markets themselves as social TV. So this is your pitch now. You are social TV. Give us the stats on what's happening in that industry. How does this fit into people's lives? And we just went from there. And we literally transformed in terms of our company name and the categorization of social TV and just having the nerve to say, we are what social TV is. We are defining this category. And I think actually when I presented at the demo day, I wasn't planning this, but I said, okay, and this is what we call social TV, which I just made up. And I realized I was like joking on stage and I wasn't even planning that. And that's what got laughs, not the things that I thought were going to be funny. So it's interesting how CultTech had got me to that point to be comfortable enough to present and show it in that context. So anyway, thank you so much for having me here. We will do another call in the future. I can't wait to talk to you about more in the future of the media and tech world. So this is Michael Fiorentino with Sofia from the CultTech Accelerator program. Thank you, LA2, for being on the Ambistream Media Future podcast.
Thank you.